5 starts on page 80. That's page 15. Page 21. 29. 37. 47. Remember this guy? The Wendigo. 49. 61. 67. And here we go. 79. Almost. Human. Some monsters of the mythical world have aspects that are distinctively human, while other parts show them to be something very different. The way these creatures act reflects their position of being caught between two worlds. Some of them are at peace, some of them are at peace with their dual identities, while others are not. However, all of them may be more human on the inside than they would like to admit. Sirens. Interesting. Greek mythology. Sirens, winged creatures from ancient Greek legend who used magic to lure sailors to their deaths. In ancient Greek mythology, the beautiful but deadly sirens were creatures of the sea. They lived on rocky shoals, surrounded by swirling and rushing water. Seafarers feared the sirens and the songs they played, and yet could not resist the lure of the sirens' magical music. The spell was broken only when the ships foundered on the rocks and the sailors drowned. So, yeah, sirens are not exactly nice people necessarily. Look at these guys being like, no. Yeah, one could say that sirens are troublemakers. Okay, Legends of Japanese folklore have red or blue skin, only 3 fingers on each hand, and enjoy eating people. Lovely. In a festival to celebrate the coming of spring, Japanese people throw soybeans in the air, hoping they will drive off any oni that are hiding nearby. That's fair. What they should throw is natto. If you ever smelled natto, it's fermented soybeans and it smells really bad. It's very good for you though. It's a popular Japanese breakfast food. This guy's weapon is kind of spooky looking. No, thank you. Okay, let's move on here. Oh, the Yeti. I think we all know what the Yeti is. Look at how grumpy he is. Grumpy. The Yeti hails from one of the most remote areas on Earth. Yeti, ape-like creature of Himalayan legend, also known as the abominable snowman. The local animals that most resembles the Yeti may be the brown bear of the Himalayas. This is a cute little brown bear. I wonder why he's standing up like that. Okay. Oh, Banshee. I've always been super interested in Banshees. The legendary Banshee are native to Ireland, and while they can fly, they have never left the island. Banshee, female spirit of Irish legend, whose wailing warns of a forthcoming death. In Irish Gaelic, Banshee means woman of the fairies. The name alone may conjure up an image of a beautiful and kind spirit. However, Irish Banshee would be the first to admit that this would not be an accurate description of who they are or what they do. The distinguishing feature of a Banshee is her scream. It's a piercing, wailing lament, one that cuts through doors or walls with barely a change in intensity. Worse than the sound itself is the Banshee's reason for making it. She directs her screams at a particular house to announce the upcoming death of a member of the family. The death could happen nearby or even very far away in another country, but the message is that someone in the family is doomed. Some believe that the Banshee is tall, with long flowing hair. Others think she is very small. The spirit is often shrouded in a hooded cloak. In many instances she appears as an old woman, but she has also taken the form of a maiden. The Banshee's hair is often red, and her eyes have turned red from grief. Sometimes a Banshee will scream to warn a person that they may die if they are not careful. At such times, it becomes very important for anyone who hears this scream to pay attention to whatever happens next. Very spooky. Sounds like a sad thing to be a Banshee. They're little. I think this is a crow friend. Nice. Okay. Medusa. Wow. Look at all this snake. Snakes. If you don't know, I have a snake named Kita. I'll link to a video of her here if you're interested in seeing her. She is the cutest little noodle. Medusa, female monster of Greek mythology with the head of snakes. Yeah, so Medusa is a gorgon, and she was cursed for being so beautiful to have a head of snakes. Mermaid, a mysterious romantic creature of the sea that can lure unsuspecting sailors to their deaths. It may be that Columbus saw a manatee on his travels, and it was so far in the distance he believed it to be a mermaid. Oh dear. With their luminous beauty and long flowing locks, mermaids can be vain and often keep a mirror close by because they're so pretty and they want to look at themselves in the mirror. This looks a lot like a very specific mermaid. She's got a really pretty tail. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, here's a whole bunch. Merfolk. Oh, that's a little more interesting. Among the mythical inhabitants of the ocean swim all kinds of merfolk. These creatures are half human, half fish. Of all merfolk, mermaids may get the most attention, but let's not forget there are also mermen, merchildren, and other figures that make the water their home. Blue men of the Minch. This group of mermen get their name from the blue tint of their skin and the fact that they are believed to live in the Minch, a rough strait between mainland Scotland and the Hebridean Islands. The water here is very cold, and so are their hands. The blue men keep busy by sinking passing ships. Well, that's not a very nice hobby, dudes. Triton was the son of Poseidon, the Greek god of the oceans. Triton's weapon was a trident, a spear with 3 forked prongs at the head. This merman acted as messenger for his father and would blow on a large conch shell to announce Poseidon's arrival. Interesting. Glaucus. In Greek mythology, Glaucus was a fisherman who ate some magical herbs and was transformed into an immortal merman. Glaucus never forgot his humble beginnings, and he often helped fishermen in need and rescued sailors lost at sea. I wonder if he ate something like gillyweed. But then again, the effects of gillyweed don't last nearly as long as forever. Gulnar of the Sea. An Arabian Night's Tale tells the story of Gulnar, a mysterious woman who captures the heart of Shah-Zaman, a Persian king who lives near the seashore. The couple marries, and it's later discovered that Gulnar comes from the sea itself. When the happy couple has a son, he is able to live just as easily on land as underwater. Interesting. Jaiorn, the mermaid of Chinese folklore, called unfortunately, we have capitalism. Oh, look at this guy. My goodness. That's an outfit. It's a magnificent warrior goddess from Aztec mythology. Interesting. I will probably not try to pronounce that name again. My apologies. The image of a butterfly or moth is not usually associated with a warrior goddess, but for this one, the combination is a perfect fit. She was a mother figure of the Aztecs charged with many responsibilities, including the care of women about to give birth. She ruled over the realm of Taniwa, a place where the spirits of women who died in childbirth and infants who died as babies resided. Aside from her everyday duties, this goddess was also one of the demons who close links to the stars, especially those that appear near the sun during the solar eclipse. Interesting. This definitely makes me realize how little I know about Aztec mythology, because so much of that is unfamiliar to me. So it makes me really want to go and learn more, which is just something that's so cool about flipping through books like these, where they've got little blurbs on a bunch of things, because you're gonna know a bit about some certain ones that you're more familiar with. I know quite a bit about Greek mythology, and even Celtic myth and stuff like that, but Aztec stuff I really don't know very much, so it's a great opportunity for me to find out that there's more for me to go out and learn. Okay, creatures of the deep. I think I said at the beginning of the last video that this was the chapter I was the most excited about. I love sea monsters. I just think they're so cool and creepy and weird, and I would never want to find one. But I'm so excited to be able to read this. Okay. Whether it's the great open ocean, a glittering lake, or a rushing river, many mythical creatures are connected to water. Not surprisingly, they tend to be excellent swimmers and very good at holding their breath. Some of them can exist on land as well, but the water is their natural home, and it's where they feel most comfortable. Okay. Qualipalik, sea creatures of Inuit legend who dwell in freezing Arctic waters. These guys would not be my kind of guys, because I don't like the cold. The Arctic is a cold and forbidding place with long winters and all too short summers. The myth that is the home of the Qualipalik does not make the landscape warmer or friendlier. This creature of the sea has none of the appeal of a slippery seal or a lumbering walrus. According to Inuit legend, it has arms and legs like a person, but here the resemblance ends. The Qualipalik also has bumpy green skin, fins that stick out was this guy's name? Dramunder. Magnificent Serpent of North. Somebody dropped something outside. Magnificent, oh my gosh, Serpent of Norse mythology. Monsters and beasts are known for many things. They may be large and terrifying. They may be cruel and ruthless, but very few are known for being patient. Yet, Jormungandr's most significant characteristic. His name means Earth Serpent, and in Viking myths, he was a type of snake long enough to circle Middle Earth, Midgard, and still have enough length left over to pull his tail in his mouth. And if one of the gods was foolish enough to get close to him, his mouth was big enough to swallow him in one bite. Dramunder was first mentioned in stories told from around 200 AD, and none of them portrays him in a particularly favorable way. Dramunder is the son of the Norse god Loki and the giantess I can't pronounce any of these, even if I'm familiar with them. Needless to say, he got his size from his mother. Odin, the king of the Norse gods, was so concerned about what Dramunder might do, he banished the serpent to the bottom of the ocean, which was really the only place where he would fit comfortably. So, where does the patience come in? Well, it was prophesied that Jormungandr would meet his old enemy Thor, the god of thunder, in an almighty battle that would not end well for either of them. The thing is, the fight is supposed to take place at Ragnarok, which in Norse mythology is an event at the end of the world, so Jormungandr has an awfully long time to wait. So here he is, circling the world. A cutie snooty booty, biting his own tail. I love these Celtic symbols, these knots. They're so interesting and fun to follow. Choop, 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 choop. Choop, 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 choop. Choop, 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 choop. Okay. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, there's so many snakes, and I love snakes. Yakumama, serpent of Peruvian folklore, believed to live in the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon River basin stretches across the top of South America. It's a really big place, and according to folklore in Peru, there is a huge serpent that lives there in the Yakumama, a name that means mother of the world. Look at this snaky boy. Yakumama was worshipped as a water serpent by the Inca people whose civilization arose in and around Peru from about 1400 CE. Conch shells have been used as wind instruments for thousands of years. Cool. The largest real-life anaconda ever caught was 28 feet long, and probably weighed more than 500 pounds. The Yakumanga is said to be several times larger than that, and if its size is not enough to set it apart, the Yakumama also has blue scales and giant eyes that glow even in the light of day. Apparently, these eyes have a kind of hypnotic effect on anyone caught in its gaze. Once that happens, they are drawn closer and closer until the unfortunate person comes to a bad end. Spooky. Okay, kappas. I know about kappas. Kappas squiggly arms covered in suckers, and a beak-like mouth. Sea monster from Norse mythology that terrorized sailors. The kraken was said to have been much larger than the real-life giant squid, which can be up to 40 feet long. That's crazy. Okay, moving on. Oh, the Hydra. The Hydra, mythical serpent with 7 heads who terrorized the ancient Greeks. So I think we all know what the Hydra is. If you've seen Disney's Hercules, then you know the Hydra basically was an ancient serpent that had like many heads. And basically if you cut off one head, 2 would grow back or something like that. Essentially, it was like an impossible task to beat the Hydra. And I believe Hercules, in the movie, he ended up like crushing it. But in the actual myth, I believe he ends up cauterizing the necks as he cuts them off, and that's what allows him to kind of defeat the thing. Several times Hercules defeated the Hydra with the help of his nephew, Lawless, who stood by his side with a firebrand. Finally, the Hydra was downed. They cauterized it. And I believe this was one of Heracles's trials, and it ended up not counting because he got help from his nephew with this one. So that was unfortunate. Okay, whoa, I've not seen this thing before. Ushioni, Japanese demon that prowls the coast in search of victims. Okay, there are a few monsters from Japanese mythology that are more terrifying than the Ushioni. Since Ushi means ox and Oni means spirit, the Ushioni is not surprisingly a mixture of the two. It has an ox head, but also has sharp fangs and a thin darting tongue. Usually its body looks something like a giant spider with 6 legs, each of which has a big claw at the end. In some stories, however, there are Ushioni with the bottom of a cat or even a human being. A few have even been said to fly with the help of large insect wings on their backs. Interesting. Okay, I wasn't familiar with this guy. I'm gonna have to do more research. It is not easy to find anything good to say about Ushioni. The only time they aren't mean is when they are being nasty. They spit poison because they can, and when it's time for dinner, they like nothing better than to have human beings on the menu. Sounds like boomers, am I right? I'm just kidding. Legends about Ushioni vary. Some prowl alone, others work in teams. Ushioni belong to a group of demons called yokai. They are known to partner sometimes with other yokai if it suits them. Then the yokai will use their magic to lure people to the perfect spot where the Ushioni are waiting to finish them. It would be helpful for people if the Ushioni fought with other yokai, but if this does happen, it doesn't happen often enough. Interesting. Look at us learning things. Whoa. Nikki, Nanka, gigantic mythical reptile of West African folklore. Interesting. West Africa / kind of sub-Saharan Africa is the area that my snake is, genetically from. She was born in British Columbia, but that is cool. So this kind of legend comes from the same area. In the steamy swamps of West Africa, some people claim to have spotted a mysterious and very dangerous creature, the Nikki Nanka. much larger than any known reptile, possibly being up to 150 feet long. Its head may well be dragon-like, and its body covered in shiny scales. Some people have even claimed that the creature may have wings or be able to spit fire, but those reports have not been substantiated. The other problem in being more specific about the Nikki description is the fact that those who have supposedly seen it have died soon afterwards. That's too bad. Spooky. The Loch Ness Monster, otherwise known as Nessie. I always find these types of monsters really fascinating. Nessie. Okay, Loch Ness Monster, best of Scottish folklore that lurks in the misty waters of Loch Ness. Familiarly known as Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster is named after the loch or lake in Scotland. The earliest known sighting came in 565 CE, following the death of a man who was attacked by a creature while out swimming. There were later claimed sightings during the 1800s, and one in the 1930s that described the creature resembling a prehistoric plesiosaur. The one photograph of this time was later revealed to be a hoax. Other sightings have not been firmly dismissed. All known plesiosaurs died out about 66 million years ago. Interesting. Loch Ness is a huge freshwater lake in Scotland. It is 755 feet deep in some parts. In 1987, boats searched for Loch Ness to find evidence of the monster. They had no success, but since the loch is very deep, there was plenty of room for Nessie to hide in if she was feeling shy. While further searches have taken place, nothing has been discovered, which has led skeptics to conclude that Nessie does not actually exist. True believers, however, simply credit Nessie with being too clever to be found until she decides that the right moment has arrived for her to reappear. Some people believe that Nessie is actually a giant eel. Interesting. Oh, cool. Taniwa, mythical being of Maori legend who lives in the deep waters. The Maori people were the first settlers of New Zealand, arriving from Polynesia in the 1300s. They called their new homeland Aotearoa, which means the land of the long white cloud. Mythical being of Maori legend. Taniwa are creatures who live in pools or caves that border rivers, lakes, and oceans. It is said that they look like giant lizards or dragons, with wings or scales, claws, and sharp teeth. However, Taniwa can also assume the form of ordinary sea animals, such as whales or sharks. Look at this scaly boy. Lying in kind of an odd position, like laid on his side. Depending on the Maori tradition, Taniwa are either viewed as guardians of a particular iwi or tribe, protecting them from attack, or as monsters that attack people. Interesting. Okay, let's keep going. Hippocampus, which is in fact is fortunate because in most important job was pulling the chariot of the mythical Greek sea god Poseidon. No single hippocampus could do this by itself. It took several hippocampi to take Poseidon wherever he wanted to go, no matter how many little seahorses might have volunteered for this task. They wouldn't have been able to manage that. Poseidon, with the Greek god of the sea and rivers, earthquakes, and horses, he is usually depicted carrying a three-pronged spear called a trident. The hippocampus was known throughout ancient Greece and made its home in the Mediterranean Sea of southern Europe. Whoa, that's super cool looking and also really scary. Bakegujira, giant ghost whale that terrorized sailors in Japanese mythology. Bakegujira means ghost whale in Japanese, which pretty much describes what this giant creature looks like. The only important additional point is that the Bakegujira looks more like a whale skeleton than a filled-out whale with skin and blubber. Even though there's no reason a ghost whale would breathe, old habits are hard to break, so the Bakegujira spends much of its time near the ocean surface, as though breathing were still something it had to do. It would be unsettling enough to see the Bakegujira from the safety of the shore. Seeing it well out at sea, though, would be much scarier, because it would be dangerous as well. This is because the Bakegujira is said to be the soul of an innocent whale that was killed for its meat and oil. This ghost whale is looking for revenge on the whale hunters who killed it. The Bakegujira, however, is not known to be fussy about who it picks on. Anyone out in a boat, whether they have ever hunted a whale or not, might be considered a legitimate target. There are those who insist that the Bakegujira is nothing more than a dead whale that various fish and birds have been feasting on, leaving only the skeleton to bob around in the water. But they are careful to make these judgments from a safe distance, just in case they are wrong. Harpoons are used by whale hunters. In one legend, a fisherman threw a harpoon at the Bakegujira, hoping to spear it, but the harpoon just sailed right through the ghost whale's bones. Spooky. The Bakegujira has allegedly always stayed close to Japan, looking for fishermen who had hunted it. Interesting. Okay, now we're moving to Chapter 7, Winged Wonders. Many mythical creatures that fly are soaring and majestic, inspired those to watch them from below. Others are more fearsome and darken the skies with their presence, creating scary shadows and menacing winds. A third group simply enjoys the ability to fly and tries to mind its own business as much as possible. Okay. The phoenix. I think everybody is familiar with what a phoenix is. A giant fiery bird that can't, get out of the rhythm of things because it's immortal. Kind of the bird of fire that symbolizes transformation, rebirth, and hope. While tales of this immortal bird were told in ancient Greece, similar stories appeared even earlier in ancient Egypt. Ancient Greek myth tells of the magnificent phoenix, which lived for several hundred years before being consumed by its own fire, and then rises again 3 days later. Often linked with the sun, this legendary bird is depicted as having eyes are often yellow, although sometimes they are said to resemble bright spheres. Very cool. The birds like the phoenix appear in ancient Greek or in ancient myths from many different countries and cultures. In ancient Egypt, it was called the Bennu, in Russia the firebird, and in China the feng. Interesting. Thunderbird. Okay, now we're heading towards my home. Up there. Not America. Thunderbird. Magnificent legendary bird of great power and strength. The Thunderbird was well known across a large area of North America, from the Pacific Northwest to the East Coast. Many tribes, including the Lakota and Ho-Chunk, had their own names for this bird. There was no mistaking the Thunderbird flying through the sky. Other birds might have colorful feathers and sharp claws, but no other bird sounds like thunder when it beats its wings or flashed lightning from its beak. Stories are even told of the Thunderbird picking up a whale from the sea and carrying it off for supper. So you can imagine the size. On the Pacific Northwest coast, the Thunderbird's place on top of the totem pole reflects the elevated stature in the community. You see these all around where I'm from. It's so cool to see something, from my home area in a book like this. Griffins. I think most people know what a griffin is. Griffon, majestic ancient creature that is part eagle, part lion. Some griffins had eagle talons on their front feet, useful for grabbing small animals to eat for dinner. Very cool. One famous griffin that you might know of is Buckbeak from... Oh no, that's a hippogriff, not a griffin. Never mind. Okay, so the rock. Just look how big this guy is. Holding this elephant like it's a snack. Giant bird of Arabian legend that could eclipse the sun. The rock appears in the Arabian Nights, a collection of stories originating from parts of Asia and North Africa. Eagles are big, condors are bigger, but the legendary rock, also spelled rock, was believed to be much bigger than an eagle and a condor put together. It was about 30 feet long, with a wingspan as great as 80 feet, big enough and strong enough to carry off a cow, a horse, or even an elephant, if that was what it was in the mood to eat. The Italian explorer Marco Polo reported seeing a rock when writing about Madagascar and the eastern coast of Africa. But this magnificent bird is best known for its appearance in the Arabian Nights. In one story, the sailor Sinbad and his crew were passing a desert island when they saw an enormous egg on the beach. Sinbad's crew, hungry as usual, went to the shore and roasted the egg for dinner. Sinbad was horrified. He guessed that the egg belonged to a rock. He ordered the sailors to get back on board the ship. They set sail immediately, just as the two rock parents returned. Seeing what had happened, the furious birds gathered up large bundles and dropped them on the ship below. The ship quickly sank and the sailors drowned. Only Sinbad survived by clinging to a piece of driftwood. Some people have compared the legendary rock to a large extinct is no ordinary bird. He is very big and very powerful, much larger than an eagle or a hawk. In fact, he is widely considered to be king of all birds. Such a mighty creature was known as the favorite mount of the Hindu god Vishnu. His wings were so powerful that they reportedly could stop the planet from spinning. Together, Vishnu and Garuda fought evil and injustice, especially any involving serpents that crossed their path. Garuda is famous across southern Asia, including India, Thailand, Indonesia, and Cambodia, and he appears as a national emblem for many countries in this region. Interesting. Okay, let's keep going. Pegasus. We all know Pegasus. A mortal winged horse of Greek mythology. While the legendary Pegasus was free to travel anywhere he wanted, his home was always ancient Greece. Pegasus is immortalized in the Northern Hemisphere constellation inspired by his shape. It was first listed by the ancient Greek astronomer Ptolemy. Many of you will have seen Pegasus again in Disney's Hercules. I've been playing a game recently called Immortals Phoenix Rising, and the first mount I found was a silver Pegasus, so I was very excited. Let's keep going. Rainbow crow, multicolored bird of Native American legend. The rainbow crow is the legend of the Lenape people who originally lived in the northeastern U.S. According to the stories told by the Lenape people, the rainbow crow once had rich, beautiful feathers and a lovely singing voice. Such gifts might have made other birds and animals jealous, but the rainbow crow was so kind and friendly that everyone was happy to enjoy its company. Then came a harsh winter, and all the animals suffered in the bitter cold. They decided to ask the great sky spirit for help, but who should be their messenger? They chose an animal should be neither too bold nor too shy. They were unsure who to pick. Then the rainbow crow stepped forward and agreed to go. The animals could not imagine a better choice, and so the rainbow crow made the long journey up through the sky to meet the Greek sky spirit. The great sky spirit. Unfortunately, the spirit could do nothing to change the winter itself. However, he could give animals something to help them survive, the gift of fire. There he is with fire. I see. The rainbow crow returned to Earth with the gift, but the journey was long and the fire burned very hot. The animals marveled over the fire, but they could also see that the rainbow crow had changed. The fire had burned and blackened its colored feathers, and its song was no longer beautiful, but dry and cracky. Even so, the rainbow crow never regretted its sacrifice, because its actions had saved all the animals, and nothing was more important than that. Interesting. It reminds me a little bit of the story of Raven, also from Native creatures themselves would probably like it better not to be shuffled and sorted in this way, but this system does not make them easier to find and understand. Okay, I see. Beginnings. Many myths tell stories of how the world began. These origin myths are tried to answer key questions about how the earth was created and how life began, but different cultures came up with very different answers. Creation myths often explain how order was brought from chaos in the universe. Endings. What comes after life is a mystery, and many cultures have sought to explain death through myth. The stories vary greatly, but usually death appears to be a blessing for some and a curse for others. So we've got the Banshee here, and Cerberus, and a bunch of snakes. And then over here we have Ymir, and I don't remember which snake this was. Okay. Gods and goddesses. People have always tried to question, or people have always asked questions about the world. They've wondered how such things as lightning and thunder or sunrise and sunset can be explained. Creating stories featuring gods and goddesses who govern the world and all the things in it has helped provide answers. So there are different types of gods and goddesses. For instance, leaders of the universe, like Zeus. Sun gods, like Inti. Spirits of nature, like Thor, who controls thunder. And powerful goddesses, like Artemis. Let's read this one. Women take an active role in many myths and have a wide range of responsibilities. Artemis was the Greek goddess of the moon and the hunt, and the protector of young girls. Itzapapalotl, the Aztec warrior goddess from Mexico, often appeared as a skeletal figure with a bony head and stony wings. The West African goddess Oya possessed power over storm. I'm just curious if these were labeled. No. Okay. Keep going. Animal magic. Animals have always played an important role in the stories people tell. Sometimes the creatures are quite fantastical, with exaggerated or mixed features and special powers. However, even the strangest creatures imaginable remain connected to the natural world. Lizards, snakes, cats, foxes. These are all things that people have wondered about and created legends about. And I pooped this snoot, but look how cute. Oh, sneaky boy. There are more animals that people have made many. About the alligator, the wolf. Cryptozoologists study magical creatures to try to find out if they're real. Ravens and crows, seahorses. Animal combinations. Some mythical creatures are made up of more than one animal. The griffon is part eagle, part lion, while the fawn is half human, half goat. But the chimera is a mix of three animals, lion, goat, and snake. So extraordinary is this accomplishment that the word chimera is now used to describe any mythical creature that is made up of two or more animal parts. Very cool. Oh. 8 sea creatures. So this, I think, is just going through everything we've talked about. books. Mythical monsters and creatures and magic is just a general interest of mine, so I'm sure I'm going to be reading more books similar to this, or that at least follow that kind of